Welcome back, mortals, to the Parallax Podcast. I'm Karisa,
And I'm Willow.
where today we're asking, are you really in control of your feelings, or is there something else pulling the strings?
We're diving deep into the unsettling world of the spirit, exploring how entities, cultural beliefs, and maybe even demonic forces have been blamed for our sudden mood swings throughout history. Get ready to question whether your last irrational outburst was really your fault.
Yeah, because you know all those times when you're like, wasn't me. It
It
wasn't me.
wasn't me.
Some outside force was just messing with me today. Something was coming at me. Have you ever had that feeling?
Oh my goodness. There are certainly moments, especially I like to say when I haven't finished my cup of coffee in the morning and my husband just tries to be nice and ask if I want this or if I want that. And I'm like, I don't want anything right now. I don't want anyone to touch me. And I'm like, it's okay. This was the evil side that came out. Like, I swear I do love you. It was just, that was Demon Willow that came out right there.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes I get like that, but I always know that when I do that, that's usually a sign that it's getting close to my female monthly cycle, and it's like
Yes. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm such a
apologies
turd.
coming forth. Yes.
I'm such a turd when that happens. I just get like a short fuse. Like things that don't usually annoy me all of a sudden are just the most annoying thing in the world. I feel like too, a lot of people will sit there and say, oh, that's when my alter ego comes out. I guess today we're learning or talking about what creates those alter egos.
Yeah, and we have a lot of spiritual overlaps that are essentially coming soon. I felt like it'd be only necessary that we talk about the key breakdowns of how the spirit in cultural perspectives kind of varies. I mean, obviously, we're not going to be able to cover all of them because there's a lot, but maybe the general consensus. So when we speak of the spirit or we speak of entities, we kind of have an understanding of what those are, especially in the next case we're going to talk about when we're talking about your case, the Pollock sisters. It'll be good to know where cultural
Absolutely.
standings are for the spirit.
Plus, I think a lot of our conversations about even just cold cases and stuff, we're probably going to bring in spiritual beliefs, just not because it's interesting and just kind of talking about a different perspective. So I'm definitely interested to dive into this because in this case, I don't know very much. I definitely know surface value, so to speak, of
Hmm.
what some people know about the spirit. I was not raised particularly spiritual, but I've never, ex-nated. I'm very interested in just kind of understanding that side of things. I'm happy to learn, and I hope I've got some good questions that others will be asking so we can all get a really good understanding of this side of things before we go forward.
Yeah, well, let's get started. So, the concept of spirit so far, when I say that to you, what do you think the spirit is, Willow?
Oh, geez. So, if I have to be honest, as a sci-fi fantasy writer, there's about 15 different ways that I could figure out how to define the word spirit.
Hmm.
If I were to think of it personally, how I might define it, I guess I would think of what makes us individual
Okay.
as far as like our unique personalities, our
Well, you're
beliefs, and our character.
okay. Well, we'll just call you Plato for now because it's essentially what Plato tried to, that was Plato's
Woohoo!
concept. Yeah. Yeah. So Plato had considered the soul as like this immortal core to personality and identity. But as far as other concepts, I wanted to kind of go over some of the ancient, more indigenous cultures when we see a lot of things like Pocahontas. When we watch that movie, you see the ancestors speak to the trees.
The spirits of the grandmother Willow.
Right, yeah, and you hear the wind, the voice of the wind, all these things that, are beautiful on screen, but are deeply rooted in cultures about how they determine life's choices or what's going on or just different things that ancestor spirits are often trying to reveal, essentially. So like the trees, the divine, the mountains, the river, all those are interconnected and influence daily life in some cultures. That's more of like kind of a broad spectrum of a energy field, I feel like. If you in a sense, that's just like encompassing different whatever that's not necessarily attached to you directly, that your afterlife attaches to that ether per se.
Oh,
So
okay.
when you become an ancestor, you attach to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and that's
Okay.
like how they, I guess, have access to us is because they've already become a part of that energy.
Right, and yes, it's kind of like you've lived your physical life, so now you can attach to the spiritual life, and the spiritual world is all around you, which I do have, down the road, we'll talk about, like, in this episode, the scientific part of it, like, how do we compute?
That's interesting. Okay, I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. So now let's talk about the religious perspective. So, like, basically, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, those are all kind of foundational religions in the same creation story. They all have kind of the same creation story. And so for them, the soul, which I explained in one of the previous episodes that we recorded, well, I guess we've only recorded one.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it was the Ka Yang case. You talked about how, I think if I remember correctly, it was that it was spirit plus body equals soul.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is kind of like a deeper dive into what the soul is, but a lot of times the word soul is used, in parallel to the word spirit. But essentially, your soul is a combination of your body and your spirit together to create the soul. And it has to do with when the body and the spirit are separated. They are separate entities. One is physical, the other one, you can't see.
I think that's interesting too, because up until I started talking with you, honestly, and became friends with you and talked more over like your beliefs and whatnot, I honestly always thought that spirit and soul were like interchangeable, that the words were interchangeable. And I didn't really realize until recently that those are, in many situations, considered to be two different things.
It's almost like the soul is the spirit, but the spirit does not complete the soul. You know what I mean? You still have to have the
That makes
other.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
like the soul is part of the spirit, but the spirit is not necessarily part of the soul. You have to have another thing to
It's
create the
not the
soul.
complete picture, correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I
Yeah.
gotcha.
Then some of the Eastern traditions, like in Chinese, Japanese, some of the Indian, I took Hindu and I study Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, and a little bit of the Sikh culture, Sikh
I'm sorry.
culture.
Did you say was it Jainism? Is that what you said?
Jainism, yeah. So
I don't
Jainism,
know.
ironically, is where the swastika you see. Yeah, so the swastika is meant to be a peaceful sign, but the Germans
But they
Nazis
used
stole
it
that
for
and turned it into something
yeah.
evil. Yes,
Interesting.
because the
Okay.
Jains are very peaceful people. Like they wear white, they walk around with a little kind of feather duster. They wear something over their face. They don't want to disturb anything in life or kill anything. They don't want to ruin ecosystem. They don't
They're
even eat plants
very
that are
peaceful
rooted.
then.
Yeah, they don't eat
Wow. Okay.
the Jain diet does not use anything that's rooted where you're essentially taking from an ecosystem like a worm or bugs that are under the underground. If you're destroying their
Wow.
habitats, that's
Okay.
considered, destructive to them.
Wow. That is so interesting. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love
so
that.
it's
I
a
really
very
do.
fascinating culture. But for them, a lot of the spirit thing is kind of encompasses some of their gods. Some of them think that you can be reincarnated to be a god. Some of them think you start off as a god and then you have to eventually get past being a god. Like God is not the ultimate placement. Like being a god is just a stepping stone in your karma,
Wow. That's
in your life
interesting.
force. Yeah, and you have to essentially escape that is the key. Like some of them feel like until you escape that duty of who you are, and you're just free with the ether of the universe, you're still in the process of life, your life force.
Okay. I didn't
Yeah,
know that. I knew a little bit about the reincarnation such within, I believe, Hinduism specifically, because know, or I remember hearing and kind of learning a little bit about karma and how they believe sort of along those same lines, the idea of trying to live a better and better and better life to hopefully being reincarnated into better lives
right.
or
So
into a
they
better
have
like system.
yes, and this is a little bit of fun facts here because this is when the British kind of colonized India. They already had a system in place. It wasn't called the caste system then, but essentially the British named it the caste system where you have the Brahmin, which are your priests, you have your royalty, you have your soldiers, you have your workers, you have every level, and it keeps getting lower. And then you have these people that are the untouchables. These are the people on the outskirts of the cities that live in filth. They are the ones who burn the dead bodies. They're the ones that you don't want to touch them because they are purely touching. You're in that caste system. You never move out of it. You don't work up. That's the key of the originality of what it was. Like you have to be reborn into a new system.
Yeah, okay, that's what it was. I thought I remembered hearing some. So they're like working to live a better life so they can be reincarnated into a higher part of the system.
Correct. You're trying to balance your karma to be reincarnated to a higher caste system. Yes. Yes. And it's interesting because this same caste system kind of is parallel, which we can talk about this down the road in another episode. Is very parallel in other religions that don't even believe in reincarnation, but believe in the caste system of where people fall in the rungs.
In the, like, spiritual realms? Is that like, in the spiritual
Yes.
realms? That's how oh, okay, gotcha,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yeah, that's a yeah, and because like Mormons have this whole, like there's the telestial, there's the terrestrial, there's the celestial. Even within the celestial, there's multiple kingdoms in there, and based on your actions and your faith and everything is where you fall in the afterlife. Yeah, it's a very complex system. That whole like death is just the beginning. It's absolutely
Yeah.
just the beginning based on spiritual context.
And that's so interesting that the caste system, so to speak, is almost mirrored in this other religion as well. I think
Mhm.
that's kind of fascinating. It's
It is
interesting that
that's why my degree is gonna be is from ASU is religion studies for the sheer fact it's so fascinating. It's
that
so
so much
beautiful to
is
look at what people
yeah.
see. Yeah, before there was any kind of, like, tagline of science to it, they saw the world differently. They identified with certain ways that the wind blew, or they identified with certain ways that people reacted to things. So, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Now, so like there's also, there's philosophy, there's modern interpretations, there's always these contemporary views often blend a little bit of spiritual belief with a lot of like psychological understandings. When we start mixing science and religion, you get like a new concept, and using like more metaphoric understanding of the spirit as more of like a way to explain your conscience, your interconnectedness, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, I personally like to have the full perspective, so both the science and the spiritual, which again is why I'm happy to have this conversation today because I know a good amount of the science because I'm just fascinated. But it's
Hmm.
nice to know the other side of things because I think that just makes you a more well-rounded individual and also just helps you understand not only yourself but all the people around you so much better to be able to
Yes.
see the
Correct.
world
Yes.
somewhat similarly to the way that they do.
Feel like understanding other people will help you not only edify your own self, but will also, again, help you understand where someone's coming from, even if you don't agree. 100%. And that's something that I feel like we need to approach that's important on this topic and topics in the future is to be open minded, to recognize that beliefs about these spiritual entities and their influence on like the physical body may vary greatly between different cultures.
Well, absolutely. I mean, even in
Yeah.
the
And
Yang case, we talked about how they
yes.
saw epilepsy
Hmm.
spiritually, and that played a huge role in the prosecution trying to use statements she made within her own language against her because they just didn't understand it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you're right to make sure that you understand the whole side of things because I'm sure that there's going to be cases we're going to cover in the future that will have someone using the defense of what they believe and having this understanding will help us even if we don't agree with that belief it will
Hmm.
make more sense why somebody may have seen their
Or
lives
why they
that
believe
way.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, or why they even is in their wheelhouse of excuses or justifications or, whatever they may be using. Why do they have that understanding? What were they raised to believe? And why would they think that is such a significant part of why they did something? We see that a lot of times in serial killers when they have like
Yeah.
God complex, but because they feel like they're ridding the world of something. It's because why do they think that? It's because they were taught that this is not okay. And so it's like manufactured into their brain.
Exactly. And having that understanding of the psychology and also what we're talking about today. Again, I mean, so, some of these killers are awful. And we sit there like, I can't even understand how somebody would do that. And I feel like this kind of helps you get that understanding, even if it's awful, even if it really
Right.
is that
Yeah.
bad. It makes you see how somebody can get to that point. And that in and of itself is fascinating.
And I tell my girls that often. I'm just like, I give an excuse of someone like, well, their home life is this way. You've got two toxic parents, and they don't see two parents that are in love. So it's really hard for them to have a relationship, and it's really hard for them to be faithful to you as a friend because they don't see that example at home. And they're like, it's still no excuse. I'm like, it's not an excuse. It's an understanding. So you
Yeah.
don't
It's
put
an
them at the same
explanation.
yeah, you don't put them at the same level that you are because you have a better understanding and grasp of what is expected in, your relationships. But again, let's move on.
Our little tangent.
As you would say, I digress.
But I digress.
Okay, so something I wanted to add now that we kind of have a general idea that there's different concepts of what the spirit can be to different cultures, not specifically one religion meaning this or that, but It could be a part of the environment. It could be a physical thing, or not a physical thing, a spiritual thing that's connected to your physical body. It could be something philosophical as an identity or something like that, or a combination of things for modern terms. But I wanted to go over something that kind of sparked this episode, which was the spirit of anger. I had a client recently talk about how her brother is always so kind and da da da. And all of a sudden he just snapped and just was like angry and all these things. She's like, he just had the spirit of anger. I'm like, oh, that's a podcast topic. Let's talk about that on a
That's a
podcast.
podcast.
Podcast topic.
What
Check.
a great name for an episode.
Right. Exactly. And so I was like, I got an episode. So I started to kind of like break my notes down into like physical manifestations. I wanted to look at like mental and emotional effects. And then I wanted to kind of look at some of the mythologies of religious text in these perspectives when it's taught as far as the spirit affecting you. Physical manifestations, so these sudden, unexplained feelings of fatigue when you're feeling exhausted despite like adequate sleep. Your energy is all of it. It's almost like your batteries are just drain immediately. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes when you watch ghost hunting things, they will talk about how they're
Yeah, they'll talk about
recording.
how, oh my gosh, I'm suddenly so tired, or like their batteries will just go dead, even though they have
Yes, when they're
a new
recording, their
battery.
their batteries, some of their cameras, and their recording devices will just drain. It's just sucking the energy out. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good, so the sudden unexplained fatigue. Physical ailments. This is the one I was telling you earlier that you're gonna be like, using my hand because your physical ailments without medical explanation.
Oh my gosh, it's almost like I'm a medical mystery. What?
Yeah, so you're developing headaches, body pains, digestive issues, chronic illness that doctors just can't diagnose properly. It's almost
Karissa,
like it's
why are you calling me out like that? Why you gotta
why I gotta put you on Front Street right there.
what?
Why you blasting me like that, girl? You
Why would
coming
you
at
do
me so
that?
strong.
I know you researched this and said, Willow.
hmm sensations of being touched when alone.
Ooh,
Again, it's a
ooh.
physical thing. It's still a physical manifestation. This is why I've categorized this underneath this one because you're still physically feeling something on the outside. These chills of pressure, this unseen hand on your skin.
Okay,
So
I just got like chills on my back because I know how that feels, and it's like, ooh, it makes me cringe because it's
mhm,
just uncomfy, is what it
mhm.
is.
Yes, I have a story. Story time.
Please tell me. I want to
And
know.
and so the 3 scratches mean it's demonic, right? Supposedly, that's a sign of, like, a demonic thing. I remember waking up one morning, and it's the weirdest thing, and I remember the way it was, like, on my chest. I had 3 distinct scratch marks. I could not configure my hand to do it. Like, I was like, I would have to be, like, in this I don't even remember, it was, like, a weird position. The way it would drag it would be the opposite hand. I could have done it with this hand, except for the way it was dragging was the other way. Like, I would have had to turn my hand this way, or like, it was just, like, weird. Like,
Oh
I'd
my
be
God,
like, "I
this
can't even
wasn't
do
at the
my."
house you're in now, right?
Oh, no, 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 this was years ago, like, at
Oh my
our
God,
house in
okay.
Ohio. No,
We
this is
may
our house
live
in
in
Ohio.
the same area, and I just got so worried for about a half a
I'm like,
second. I
"Don't
was about to
send
be
that
like,
don't send."
I was about to be like, I'm gonna go get the priest right now. I'm getting holy water. We're saging
No.
the place.
I can't even remember what brought I remember there was a lot going on, and I remember something about the situation was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so crazy." But I don't remember the details. I've completely forgot the details. I just remember the scratch mark.
Yeah, I too would wake up, see 3 scratches on myself, and think, wow, this is insane. No, I would be freaked out, and I would be like, I would go get Michael. I'd be like, you got to pray over me right now. Where is our cross? Where's the
You
salt?
know,
Where's the holy water?
I am someone I pray every night. I do not believe, and this is just purely my belief. You can do whatever you want, whoever's listening. I do not believe in praying out loud to where the evil side of things can hear it. I don't want them to hear what I'm praying about. It is a personal connection to the universe for me when I'm talking to God. And if I fall asleep by accident before I pray, every night I have a wake up moment. And I'm like, "Oh gosh, I forgot to pray. I'm so sorry." And I reconnect and start praying.
That's actually really interesting. And that might be something that I bring up with Michael just as a compelling conversation. Because he was raised Catholic and his family is Catholic. So I've been learning about Catholicism so I can
Mhm.
respect his beliefs and his culture and his religion. And I know that many of other practicing Catholics and honestly many Christians out there will pray before meals. So I think that's actually kind of a compelling conversation to have about, what would you think about the possibility of doing that and having something on the other side, so to speak, hear
Well, when you're
you? You know,
praying
do
when you're
they
praying
believe in
s
that?
so from the time I was 5 till 13, my stepdad was Catholic, so I did have Catholic influence growing up, and the ritualistic conversation of prayer, doing, like, pray for the food, pray for the hands that prepared it. Those are kind of like a repetitious, like, "Hey, we're" it's a thankful thing, I feel like. It's not specifically saying, "Please watch over this specific please guide this person." It's not like a specific personal prayer per se, it's a generalized umbrella prayer, I feel like there's a difference.
Okay. Okay, that makes more sense then to say that we're having,
So
like
when
you
the
said.
bishops do the Lord's Prayer, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." When they're doing that, that is the Lord's Prayer that in the Bible that was created to show people how to pray. It is a guideline.
Okay.
It's not meant to be like you pray this way every single time. It's meant to be, this is the structure of your prayer. Who are you addressing? What are you wanting to talk to him about? Are you asking for pure selfishness, or are you also forgiving those who've done stuff to you? And then how to kind of close, like, who are you coming unto through what oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking, who are you vicariously praying through? Like, are you coming to God through Jesus? I'm praying through this person to get to God, or whatever you're doing. So there is the purpose of that is you are connecting to the spirit world, and this is how you're
Okay.
doing it. Yeah.
That makes more sense then when you say that at night when you are going through and praying specifically for people because you are making more specific requests. That makes sense why you would then do so and do so quietly to ensure that the specific people that you are
Right. The things
speaking
I'm
about, so
asking
to
for.
speak, are gonna
Yeah.
come through to who they need to and not have somebody else hear it
When
who
I'm trying
means
to
to do
connect, I'm
harm.
trying to connect to the universe. I'm not trying to have those around me watch me do it. I'm not doing
Yeah.
it as a show. I'm not doing it as a, "Hey, see me pray." This is something I'm doing personally in my mind to connect to the spirit world that is all around me. And if you truly believe in a God and a power that's higher than what we can understand four-dimensionally, you'll know that that God can also hear your thoughts.
Interesting. Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense then. Okay. Cool. Thank you
Yes.
for explaining that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You're so very welcome.
Like, oh.
So sleep disturbances and nightmares, things that wake you up like all of a sudden that 3 o'clock, witching hour.
Oh my God, I hate it. When I wake up okay, speaking of which, this is the quickest tangent ever, but I hate waking up at 3 o'clock. The worst things always happen at 3 o'clock. I always feel
Yeah,
like
it's the
creeped
witching
out.
hour.
Yes. Whenever I have creepy, awful, horrible sleep paralysis, it's three, sometimes like 3 in the morning. And also, my newest scar, my cat ran across my face at 3 in the
Yes.
morning and
It was
split
running from a
open.
witch.
Yes, split open the inner part of my eye. Now I have a permanent scar there. Three
It'll
o'clock
go
is
away.
not a good time.
It'll go away, I promise. You just gotta give it
Hopefully.
some time.
If
So
not, I
the
mean,
area that it's scarred is such a tender area. It
I
takes a lot
know.
longer for that to heal.
And my eye swelled up and it was all bruised
Oh,
and everybody
yeah.
kept
You
looking at me
definitely
all
look like
weird.
you definitely look like you went through a WWE match with
I
Michael.
know. Everybody was like looking at me all weird. I'm like, it wasn't my husband. It was not my husband. I literally had
If
a
anybody's
client,
gonna get abused, Michael's gonna. I'm kidding.
right? But I literally had a client who was like, do I need to do something? Do you need help? And I was like, it was my cat. I swear. It was my
Swear
cat.
it's my
I
cat.
promise.
Yeah, so sleep disturbances like a sleep paralysis, you hear these stories of spirits, the succubus and the incubus that will take and sexually take advantage of you. There's these waking up and seeing dark figures at the end of your bed.
Which for sleep paralysis, I know that's a really big hallucination people have. I usually have auditory hallucinations. I'll hear whispering all around me.
You say
Um,
hallucinations as if they are not real.
Carissa, I need you to not. No, I need you to not. I just need you to not.
Thinking about the potential of it being real.
Okay. I need to continue to tell myself that it's an auditory hallucination because
Mhm.
I don't want to know who's whispering around me.
Well, just tell them, "What's your name?" So I can call you
Who
by name.
who
Just
are you?
yeah.
Who are you?
Who are you? And we realize that's from The Wizard of Oz.
It took us like weeks to figure that out.
All right, changes in vision and hearing. It's often like these flashes of light, experiencing blurry vision, buzzing in the ears. Yeah. Yes.
Because
You're
that's
pointing at me.
what. Well, yeah, because you said flashes of light. Oh, one of my eyelashes just. Oops. Anyway, you said flashes of light. I'm sorry.
Squirrel.
That's one of my eyelash extensions, like fell into my cheek. But you said flashes of light, and we just talked about the Cayenne case, and she
Hmm.
always said before a seizure, she saw flashes of light. And the Hmong
Cultures
culture
think that
believe
epilepsy is a spiritual thing.
exactly. So that is interesting. That's interesting.
Fascinating. Now I'm going to move on to some of the mental and emotional effects with the spirit that can, affect us, like intense mood swings, like the client who said her brother all of a sudden had the spirit of anger. Experience these sudden like mood changes that kind of express anger and depression or like where did this come from? I don't even know why I'm all of a sudden just drained and I feel like
Yeah.
so yeah, so just taken
Yeah.
down a beat. Hearing voices, here's your whispers,
Oh my
your
God.
unexplained
Stop.
whispers, hearing voices, whispers, or your name being called when no one is present.
Okay, but have you ever had that where you're like falling asleep and you're not quite asleep, but you're also not really awake, and you
You hear
will
someone
hear
say something?
someone like in
Yes.
your head call
And
your
you're like,
name,
you're
and
looking
you just kind
around
of
like,
wake up a little bit and you're like, did I dream that or is that real?
well, here's another story time. My dad, my real dad, I shouldn't say real dad, he was my biological dad. My real dad is the dad who I have now. But my biological dad did not raise me. He left when I was 3. I didn't really know him. I found him when I was 18. I feel like this is the house that Solemn Grundy built, where it's like born on Monday, christened on Tuesday, took ill on Wednesday, died on Thursday. So essentially, I didn't know him. But flash forward to 2 weeks before he dies, he gets put on hospice for lung cancer. He calls all of his kids. Some of us have not even been in the same room together ever. Some of us have never even met.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so he we're all there. So some are flying in from all over the country and stuff. 6 of us, I think. And the night before he passed away, I was like more of like the religious person in the room as far as like, I've always been fascinated with that kind of thing when talking about it. And he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." I was like, "Okay." And like he's on high doses of morphine. He's like, I know, this sounds crazy, but there's someone standing here telling me it's okay to go. His name is Todd, and he's waiting, and he said, "As soon as I'm ready, and I just want to let you know that I think I'm ready to go." I'm like, "Well, when you're ready, you take Todd's hand and you go." He died that night.
That is like I
Yes.
got goosebumps.
Yes.
That's honestly,
Yes.
I mean, in a way it's almost scary, but it's also I guess
Comforting.
fills you with this, yeah, it's comforting, kind of fills you with a sense of relief that maybe he wasn't afraid and
Mhm.
that he wasn't alone and he knew he wasn't alone.
Right. And that's what we'll get into in the next case is the reincarnation thing, is the
Yeah.
afterlife, because the question of the afterlife, what is there life after death? That someone
Yeah.
is there waiting on the other side, like how does that work? Well, we don't know because we're not dead.
So
But then
did the name Todd mean anything?
yes. I don't think he realized that. His grandfather, like someone on his side of his family when I was doing genealogy, I think was named Todd.
Oh my God. So what if it was his grandfather who would, oh my gosh, like coming to get his son?
Mhm.
Stop it.
I know.
That's
I know.
sweet.
So, unusual intrusive thoughts. Wow, here we go. Our intrusive thoughts, Holy Spirit. I'm blaming on the
Oh
spirit for that one.
no.
Yeah, those foreign thoughts and characters that are not normally us being violent. These
No.
negative obsessive thoughts, those are the spirit. They're absolutely not us
So
at all.
whenever you sit there, you're like, okay, the intrusive thoughts won. Maybe they actually did. Maybe your spirit was actually fighting and this time it lost. And that's the moment.
Well, this is interesting when it comes to like I don't feel like I have a lot of intrusive thoughts per se. However, I do feel like there's moments when I'm thinking something, I'm frustrated with someone, and a random angry thought would come in. I'm like, I don't think that. Why would that ever be in my mind? I would never want that. I'd never think that. You're kind of like, where did that come from?
Oh, yeah.
I totally get that whole intrusive thought being like completely out of character.
My intrusive thoughts are typically deciding if I want to stop what I'm doing that I'm like supposed to be doing and squish my cat and just squish him and give him kisses and when I'm actually have something I'm literally in the middle of doing, or if I should be a responsible human being and continue to do the responsibility that I have been given. And I always squish the cat. Are you kidding me?
Always
I always
choose.
stop and
Always.
squish it. I will always choose the cat. I'll always choose the loaf.
Have you ever had the feeling of someone present around you?
Yeah, yes. Okay. Would you like a story time from moi?
Yes, please share. Share story time.
Okay, this is super fun. This is a good conversation to have for this specific episode. When I was younger, I grew up in Indiana, and both of my parents are and were veterinarians. Before they got divorced, they owned a practice together. This practice operated out of a building that had, oh gosh, it was a really, really old building. It had been built upon the remains of what we believe to be the very first log cabin in Indiana. You could see some of the original logs that were kind of like petrified in the basement that had been later dug in. So the building was over 200 years old. They had an absolutely ridiculous amount of evidence that there was something within that building. My mom did a lot of research. We ended up naming the spirit Martha. We assumed that she was a woman because we heard a woman's voice. Apparitions were female. We liked Martha. Martha liked us. Martha enjoyed the children. She enjoyed my parents. She would make herself known, but she was always very kind,
Mhm.
so to speak. And I cannot tell you the amount of times that I would be in that clinic alone. There were certain places where I'd feel uncomfortable, but sometimes I just knew she was there and I would
Mhm.
just talk to her and just, hi, Martha, how are you? And when I did that, the room would just seem better. Like if I just acknowledged her and,
Mhm.
hi, Martha, how are you today? Then the room would just, like, that feeling of being worried or afraid would
Oh,
just
yeah.
immediately lift. So we're pretty
Nice.
sure Martha had children of her
That's
own
a
too,
good
which is probably
spirit.
why. Yeah. She did get upset though whenever my dad moved away and she started throwing things at people.
She had the dad.
Oh no, she I think just loved that my dad and everybody who worked there did so much to preserve the history in the building. And as
Mhm.
soon as he sold it, we knew it was probably going to get torn down because it was starting to, it was just an old building. I think she knew that. And I think she just didn't like the fact that the people that she had cared for so many years were leaving. But she definitely was not okay when we left. She literally was throwing things, like legit. She threw boxes at people's heads. She was not okay.
And that's I mean, that is also part of cultural history or cultural beliefs that, a spirit doesn't really have the ability to discern right from
Hmm.
wrong, and so they don't have the discernment between what's happening, like, "Oh, it has to sell or it has to do these things." So they just immediately become angry. They don't have
Yeah.
that normal understanding of what's happening in the physical world. Which if a spirit is like you said, it made you feel more positive, which is great, but when she's angry, there's probably gonna have a little bit more of a dread or more, like, feeling of heaviness or something like that in the
But yeah.
environment.
But yeah, I mean, you could tell even years later when I went back to visit Indiana, we just drove by the clinic just because I just kind of wanted to put eyes on it because it had been so long. And the building was still there, but it did not look the same. I mean,
Mhm.
you could tell obviously people weren't in it right at the time, and it might just be me like reading into it too much, but I honestly felt like it didn't look the same. It didn't have the same feeling. And I wasn't even inside the building. I was just looking at it as we drove by, and I just knew it wasn't the same. It was just
Yeah,
sad.
you probably could feel the energy.
Yeah,
It's kinda like
and
the
it was very
Winchester
sad.
mansion. The
That's
Winchester mansion,
true.
she kept building to keep the spirits going.
Which is also fascinating. And honestly, talking about this makes sense.
Mhm, mhm. Alright, so, something else just to close up the whole, mental and emotional effects is the difficulty concentrating or brain fog, or even the loss of interest or social withdrawal. Often, if you're being affected by a spirit, it is said that you're developing these sudden obsessions with the dark. That's why you always see, like, oh, they're tapping into evil because they're so dark and they're just obsessed with the
Yeah.
yeah, it's like withdrawing them. Why are they obsessed with purpose of life? Why these and that? Why are they experiencing no mental clarity? And culturally speaking, sometimes it's stated that a spirit is affecting your focus. The next time that we're feeling writer's block, we'll be like, you know what, spirit, go on about yourself.
I was about to say, so now next time Jamie sits there and says, writer's block is real, you'll say, no, spirits are.
So he says writer's block is not real. He
Okay,
believes you're
well,
bored, and I believe it's real. So I believe it's real. And now I know it's because of a spirit. So we're gonna have to bring him into this like understanding.
okay, well, tell Jamie that he's just wrong. Like, he's just
He knows.
wrong.
He knows.
He knows.
Yes, it's funny. Now I want to kind of move on to the religious and mythological perspectives of the spirit. Like again, we mentioned some of the ancient beliefs of what the spirit is, but ancient societies, like a lot of the pre-literature type time frames, this is a society. I can't even talk. Let's try that
Beautiful.
again. In ancient pre-literature societies, anger and it was a very like powerful and very terrifying thing for people when people had this spirit of anger because it often would project as a supernatural thing that was like people had to kind of like um adjust course like what's happening like we have you think about like if the volcano erupted, what
Yeah,
have we done
yeah.
wrong? You know, what did we do wrong when the
Okay.
volcano erupted? All of a sudden there's a flood. What did we do wrong?
Yeah.
A lot of times when there is a later translation of written work, it is after a natural disaster because of a spirit or because of an angry spirit or whatever. It comes after the fact, not like necessarily a prophecy that this is to come.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Because I know, reading, because I used to be super into Greek mythology.
Mhm,
And they would sit there and oftentimes say that this, that, and the other natural disaster occurred as punishment because of XYZ things that they did or
mhm.
did not do, or sacrifices they did or did not make.
Correct. The Bible is huge on this, the aftermath explanation. And the Bible also addresses a lot of the anger frequently as like this destructive consequence. This, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the Bible has this anger that is destructive, but they also now that I'm just like rephrasing my brain here, they also have like a righteous anger that the Bible talks about, like that is used like almost as like a catalyst for justice, something that is used as an excuse. Like I had to act in this way. Sometimes
Oh, like
war is sometimes
yeah.
like I had to kill in war to save my culture, to save
Yeah,
my
no, that's
country.
interesting because I have that, in my novel, because my novel deals a lot with war and the characters talking about how they have this almost exactly like you said, this righteous anger, this anger towards somebody who has harmed them or their loved ones, and they know the only way to save them is to enact violence. They know that that's the only way, and they're fueled by this anger. So that's a very interesting tie
Mhm.
there. That's I guess that's interesting that people were able to recognize this so early on.
Yeah, and they would say that you allowing anger to lead you to sin is allowing the devil to essentially have a foot like a foot ahead of you, like a foothold or however they would say that, a step up on you. Like the devil's ahead of you when you've allowed you to be overcome by anger because now you're trying to get backtrack away from the anger and the sin that you committed and the devil's already ahead of you.
And that's interesting because I've also heard that anger itself, on the kind of psychological side of things, anger is a product of another emotion. So it's a secondary
Mhm.
feeling or secondary emotion. You're feeling angry because of the primary emotion that you're dealing with. So that's interesting to say, well, you did XYZ because of anger, and that means the devil's ahead of you. That means that he has been able to take advantage of your vulnerability due to your
Your
primary
weakness right
emotion
now.
and insert that secondary feeling. Well, I know that you can feel this right now because you're vulnerable. That's
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Look at you being like, "Oh, this makes sense."
I'm so cool. I'm making connections.
Which, while I do have a whole section on science at the end of this to kind of generally focus on the observable, measurable, testable type things. But before we go there, and I'm going to list a few of my favorite religions outside of Christianity that I love to kind of study. But often, when I'm talking about in my third book, when I wrote that nonfiction book, when I'm talking about energies, talking about because the spirit technicality wise, whether you're believing it's the wind or whatever, is a unseen energy. If it's the tree, the spirit is manifested in the tree. It's almost like an avatar inside the tree. The spirit
Mhm.
itself is embodying the tree, but the tree itself isn't the spirit, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes.
Okay. With that said, when you walk into a room, you're like, oh, the energy is just so down. Like, this is just drawing me down. You feel the energy or whatever. Keeping that in mind, and this is something our listeners may already know, or maybe they don't. If you don't know this, fun facts. When you go into an environment where it's kind of soundproof in a way, and you have multiple tuning forks, but you have duplicates of each one. You have the tuning forks are the ones that are look like a almost like like a goalpost, but made out of metal.
Yeah, and people will hold them up and see if they yeah.
They ding them and they have like a frequency that's released. Okay.
Mhm.
Every tuning fork releases its own specific frequency based on the way it is, the size of it, like how it's made, like whatever its shape is, how like like the distance, like the thickness, all that. Each tuning fork has its own frequency. Okay. And if you're in this environment and you ding one tuning fork, the only other tuning fork in that room that will vibrate is one that matches its frequency. So if you hit a metal tuning fork and there's an exact copy of it in its environment, it will also vibrate even if you didn't ding it.
Interesting.
And if you take that concept and you put it to your negative energy, when you're having a bad day and you don't say, I'm having a bad day, I need to assess this, and I need to be like aware of this so I don't draw in more negative energy, you'll be like, why is all the bad things happening today? Why are all these things happening? Why is it? Because negative attracts negative. When it's coming
Mhm.
to that tuning fork, it is attracting all your negative energy. So all the bad things are going to start happening
That
unless you
is
put it in
so
check.
interesting.
Unless you
That
put
makes
it in check.
sense.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because people always talk about that.
Hmm.
Don't be as negative because all the negative things are going to happen to you, da 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 da. And putting it into the context of the tuning forks, that makes a lot of sense. Definitely not something that I thought about before.
Yeah. So there's oftentimes when I'm having a moment where I'm really frustrated or I'm really, and I have to be in my own like wherewithal to
Hmm.
be able to say, of course, Jamie's messaging me right now. I have to be in, he
Hi,
must have known we were
Jamie.
talking about him.
His ears were burning.
Yes. I have to take a deep breath and I think, okay, it's okay. It's not that bad. This is a temporal moment that will not last. Just like when people are like, oh, I hate you. That is a very temporal emotion for in a permanent feeling when someone says that. So I try to, I'm not perfect at this, but when I'm having a moment where I'm like so frustrated, sometimes I will lash out and I'll be like snippy. I'll like be loud. I'll be like angry. But there are a lot of times when I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. It's only a short stint in a long run of my life. Let's not make it consume me to where I'm the only one feeling it because those who are affecting me don't even care, nor do they know that I'm frustrated. Okay, I digress. I'm gonna use that.
But I digress.
I digress. Some of the religions that I've absolutely been fascinated with is Zoroastrianism, Hinduism, and like the Buddhists and like the Jainism, those types of things. When it comes to the Zoroastrianism people, they are the magi in the Bible. When the Bible before the Bible was changed, when the Bible states that the wise men came to see the Christ child, it used to say when the magicians or the magi came to see the Christ
Oh,
child,
okay.
those were the Zoroastrian priests who used the constellations to find out where the Christ child was.
That's interesting. Okay.
Fun facts. Anyways,
Wow.
yes, they have this Eshma, which I may not be remember. I can't remember if that's proper pronunciation, but this is like a demon of wrath, and it is like literal personification of anger. When you're angry, this is because this demon is affecting you.
It's Eshma?
Eshma, yes.
Eshma.
I was trying to remember how to pronounce. I'm really terrible with pronunciations. Forgive me if anybody's
Oh,
listening who
that's
is a
okay.
Zoroastrian if I pronounced that wrong. Hinduism. Now this one I love. Manu. So this is kind of like one of the 12 aspects of Siva. Siva is like the devil. Um,
Okay.
and has believed to be born of essential the creator's anger. Like the
Is
creator's anger
interesting.
is yeah.
Is the
There's some really
devil.
cool
Wow,
stories.
okay.
Yeah, there's some really cool stories and why the Buddhist sits the way the Buddha sits is based on like this particular evil trying to come at him, and he sends his three daughters and then he can't be affected, and it's they ask essentially why. I mean, I'm paraphrasing the story, but, like, the way the Buddhist is, like, pointing almost down and up, it's like it's a complete connection to the earth and the heavens.
Okay. That's
Yeah, so that
interesting.
even when you're seeing sculptures with different gods and the way they're holding their
Mhm.
hands, they're symbols, and it's very symbolic of what they're trying to address. It's almost like ancient sign language, what's happening in these images. Yeah, the Jains, now that's the one I was telling you that are very peaceful.
Yeah.
They're just trying to complete their cycle of reincarnation. The demon of anger symbolizes both internal conflict and the destructive nature of uncontrolled emotion. They truly believe that if you are feeling angry, you are not in check and you've got a lot of work to do. You need to get that under control. You need to figure out how to basically ward off that demon.
That's honestly makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Now, we know that science is like, unless it's observable, it's testable, it's measurable of the natural world, it's generally not considered science. you have the world of science and then you have the spirit world. These are often like not work in tandem. The
They're not
supernatural.
very tied together.
Correct. Correct. But there is a case in the future that I'm going to add to our list with near death experiences. I want to kind
Yes.
of dive into about a case
Yes.
in the 90s where yeah, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit in our next episode too, but there's a case that I remember studying in college with the testable is created a fringe science of testable, maybe an organ of this. The spirit is actually an organ outside the body we can't see, but maybe it is testable, maybe it is measurable.
Think I know what you're talking about, and I can't wait for that conversation.
All right. So, real quickly, I just want to sub up a few of the things that neuroscience and some of the altered states of consciousness are starting to kind of like come into its own. Like I mentioned, the near death experiences, but there is, of course, neuroscience studies the brain, but neurotheology is a field that examines potential neuro underpinnings of religion and these spiritual experiences and attempting to identify the regions of the brain where these things are happening. Like, is it if the brain is dead, but these things are still happening, where is this consciousness active? Where is it supposed to be?
Okay.
Yeah. So this neurotheology is kind of a new friend. It's very new. I'm not, I wasn't saying very new. It's not very new when I think of like in the first 5 years or so. I'm talking like
Yeah.
new as far as been since I've been alive.
Yeah.
It's
Which in
makes
the
me feel
realm of
young.
science is very, very new.
Yeah. Yes, and I mean, there's the research into, like, meditation and the energies that are produced when someone is meditating, the use of psychedelics. I would like to definitely do an episode on psychedelics because
Well, girl,
psychedelics. Oh, yeah.
there's
And
so much we can go into with that.
yes, especially with psychedelics, I wanna talk about when we do that episode and the cultural appropriation of people using psychedelics without the sacred. To be continued for that part. Alright, you have any
TBD or
questions
TBC.
on some of the spiritual stuff you wanna talk about? Because that's all I got to
Gosh, I
offer for
mean,
you, girl.
no, that's a lot. That's a lot more than I knew. I feel a lot more well-rounded. I feel like I have a much better understanding of a lot of people around me who are more spiritual than I am. Honestly, I feel like I have a lot better understanding of Catholicism, which I need anyway,
Mhm.
to, just understand my in-laws and everything. It's honestly fascinating, which I said this at the beginning, but I say it even more so now to tie together what we know of in psychology and also spiritually, because there are so many connections there. I feel like there's so many things where you could, and I'm not trying to say anything in particular but any religion, but I feel like there's a lot of things where you could use these stories and such as metaphors of what we scientifically, quote unquote, understand in psychology.
Mhm.
And I think that's so interesting that these very ancient religions already understood that before we were able to put words to it to explain it, so to
A lot
speak.
of psychologists it used to be an underground thing, but a lot of psychologists now are experimenting with the ideas of psychedelics, which we'll talk about in the future episode. We'll add that to the list. We're using those things where people have a better understanding of microdosing to get past certain anxieties, PTSD, depression.
Absolutely. I've heard really
Connecting
good things
to
about
yeah,
it.
being able to connect to the afterlife or that there is an extra maybe part of the universe you can't see without psychedelics helps you have hope. So
And I think
there
that's
is a study in
beautiful.
that. Yeah, it
I
is.
think it's beautiful. I think the idea of the spiritual realm, of course, again, as a sci fi fantasy writer, I have things that I would do with it just for the fun of creating a story. But at the same time, the idea of death itself is terrifying no matter how you spin it, because as humans, we are naturally so afraid of the unknown. We strive to understand everything and to
Mhm.
understand the world around us, but there is nothing preventing death, and there is nothing out there to help you know 100% for sure and understand death. The idea of the spiritual world provides this innate comfort,
Mhm.
and I think it's beautiful in that. I think that it is a comfort we need, because it does help us to continue to live our lives as full as we can, even though we know obviously at some point there, we're going to come to the point where our lives are no longer a thing. But it's nice to be able to face that with at least hopefully a sense of confidence, knowing what explanation you do have for what you may be going into.
Which, that leads us into our next episode. We're going to talk about reincarnation. So,
Oh my gosh,
hold
girl, look
tight,
at me
people.
go. I'm so cool.
All right. So until our next episode, if you'd like to follow us, you can go to theparallaxpodcast.com. You can click on those two little icons down there. You can click on our social media and follow us for updates, anything cool we got. And we've got some great jokes on there. What you talking about?
We do. We do.
Yeah. Yeah, especially International Joke Day there, back in the day. That was so funny. Anyways, if you'd like to send us an email, maybe you've got a topic you'd like us to cover, because we'll definitely cover it, just email us at info@, and we will get back to you. We'll put it on our set list and we'll get to it. If you have questions or you have any comments, definitely put it in the comments below, and definitely follow and subscribe to us, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Later,
Next time,
mortals.
mortals.